Hello, and welcome to our series, Women in E-Mobility, Accelerating Diverse Women. I'm Dr. Shelley Francis, co-founder and managing partner at EV Noir. Our work centers on shared, collected, and electric and autonomous vehicle technology. We focus on two areas of work that include e-mobility best practice and e-mobility diversity, equity, and inclusion. So during this series, we'll talk about engaging diverse women as leaders in electric mobility, what it's like to work in the sector, as well as talk about emerging issues and trends. So today we're talking with Raj Register, an executive at Ford working on electric vehicle battery marketing. So Raj, welcome to Women in E-Mobility. Glad to have you here today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Definitely looking forward to the conversation.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I'm really excited to chat with you. I know you've been at Ford since 2000. You were first brought on as a recent college graduate, completing degrees in mechanical engineering as well as engineering management. And then you continued your ascent at the company through leadership positions in experiential marketing, comms, or communications, while also completing your MBA. And then after an already stellar and incredible career, you're now head of US battery electric vehicle marketing. So wow, let's talk for a minute about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would have never thought as a engineering undergrad I would have had a career in marketing at all. You know, you go to school to be an engineer, most people go and do that, and then that's it. When I first joined Ford, I was a Ford college graduate, and I got a chance to do multiple rotations in the company. And so I really took full advantage of that. So over 2 years, you could do four roles. And I chose to do one in product marketing. I also chose to do an international assignment, as well as two that were in my core curriculum of body engineering. And that's probably the most priceless thing that I did in my career, because it really set the stage for the art of the possible. And I knew after I got into marketing, I wanted to come back. And my boss at the time, when I told her, like, I love marketing, I want to switch over. And she's like, you just got an engineering degree. Go and make sure that you're the best engineer possible. Be a student of the business. Learn how we work, learn design, release, manufacturing, launch, all the core things. And if you still have that itch to come back into marketing, then go ahead and do so. And so I had a really unique opportunity to do another international assignment in Cologne, Germany. And when I was there, that's when I started my business school curriculum. So at the time, Duke had a dual MBA program at Goethe University, which was in Frankfurt. And that's where I started business school. So I'm working full time. I had my first daughter and I went to business school. And so when I repatriated and I came back to the US, it was an interesting experience, because then I needed to make a clear decision of what I wanted to do. And we had a unique opportunity internally for me to go through another leadership program. And that's how I made my transition into the marketing and into the marketing discipline. And from there, it's been history. So just working my way through, being very humble, working with our dealers, working in product marketing, working in comms, working in our growth audience space, global brand experiences, and now I'm here leading all of our US marketing for battery electric vehicles. So if someone were to ask me, did I know that this was the path? Absolutely not. You can never connect the dots looking forward. But I'm in a unique situation now where all of those collective experiences have really defined who I am as a leader, as well as how I participate in the organization and really try to help us move our business forward.
Wow, that's an amazing career trajectory. And just your experiences in terms of moving through the different leadership opportunities and starting graduate school in a global setting has to really inform the way that you even look at your work, the marketing strategies that you utilize. But I want to go back a little bit to thinking about your life or your professional trajectory or where you thought you would go during undergrad. So, when you were doing your undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering, did you already know that you wanted to find a career in the automotive industry? Or, did you have your eye on some other industry or some other aspect of engineering?
That's a good question. Interestingly enough, I did want to be in automotive. So I am what a company probably would call like a true ROI when you invest in your community. And so when I was in high school, Ford had a program called Ford Explorers. And I think it was like once every 2 weeks, I would go and hear from engineers, learn about what they did, in their day-to-day roles, as well as work on very specific projects that really helped me understand and define like what it meant to be an engineer. In high school, I also went to a VOTEC center that taught me like some early engineering classes, CAD design. And so when I went away to Michigan Tech, I was very prepared for school. And then, especially in engineering discipline, which many people don't know what it means to be an engineer. They have an idea, but I think with that experience I had in high school with VOTEC, as well as with participating as a Ford Explorer, I knew enough of what it meant that I knew that there was some interest there. And then I interned at Ford. And when it was time for me to graduate, I had multiple job offers, but then Ford came in a way that was very different, where I was very clear where I thought I wanted to be, but they made multiple offers of, okay, you can either be in manufacturing or you can be in body engineering. Based on how you did in your interviews, we think you would be excellent at both. And that just showed me that Ford was a company that I felt like I wanted to be a part of, because I felt like I had a choice, and it wasn't, here's what you're going to do, here's the job you're being offered, do you want it or not? There was a conversation. And so that's what led me to believe, even through the other experiences, it was a place that I thought I would thrive. And, based on what's happening right now, I believe that that is the case.
Wow, that's so refreshing to hear that an employer was so forward thinking that they allowed you to have the space to decide in which direction you wanted to go in, as well as explore, different segments of business so that you could identify like which area was, of most interest to you, where your passions lie, where you thought you could have the most significant impact. So that's really a phenomenal story that we don't often hear, from women working in the diverse e-mobility sector. One of the things that I would say in terms of, my shared experience in terms of working in the e-mobility space is that, I loved cars, I loved the technology, and then I used to bond with my dad as a kid over cars and technology and going to auto shows. And so it's really interesting. Our organization, EV Noir, works at the center, like you said, of connected electric, shared, and autonomous vehicle technology. And so, I didn't start off knowing that I wanted to go in this direction, but because of my background in public health and my interest in, technology, it was a really wonderful marriage in terms of uh, e-mobility, as well as thinking about making changes to inform the health benefits of all communities and utilizing clean transportation as a venue to make that happen. So definitely interesting how we all come to this space from really different perspectives, different backgrounds and experiences, but we're here to really make a difference and move this technology forward. So
That's
one of the things, well, go ahead. You wanted
I
to
was just saying,
jump in?
that's what we're in the same room. And so you never, it makes me think about relationships and people and how you get to different places. And I just love the fact that while you had a different point of view or a collective experiences of how you got to where you are today, we're still in the same room. And so I just think that's an important point to, make. I think it's amazing. So this is great.
Yes, no, it's great. I know in terms of just the both of us being in the field, one of the things that I've experienced, and we're going to take a deeper dive to see what your perspective is on this too, is that we're both diverse women working in the e-mobility industry, and so one of the immediate things that I've noticed over the years was that the field is not or was not very diverse, and so sometimes you're in these different rooms and these different conversations around electric vehicles, around mobility, etc. And the room would be full of early adopters, or what we consider early adopters.
Mhm.
And so I definitely wanted to do something different in terms of having a space for more diverse voices to really inform the next generation of women working in the space.
Mhm.
And so one of the questions that I have, I think, for you in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion is, you know, what roles do you believe electric vehicle technologies and other e-mobility solutions can really play in creating this positive space around diversity in this segment?
Yeah, I see it in two parts. So, from my perspective, there's people, and then there's a process of how you're going to develop a certain strategy or goal for your particular company or that space. And so, the example I brought up about Ford, like investing in the community and investing in me, I think it's very important that we start to invest in our youth and show them the art of the possible. Like, I would not have known what it meant to be an engineer if Ford didn't invest in me in high school. And that was a changing moment for me. So when we think about EV and how fast it's growing and how technology is going to be a major, major component as to what the customer journey is going to be like, the excitement, the experience, we need to start talking to the younger students, and helping to get them to see, what's possible, and getting them on the path of being a part of the solution making. And so, that's one like huge thing that I think is imperative. You have to do that. Another piece of it is when we think about research in this space, and you talked about, in the rooms, there's these early adopters. I think it's super important as a company to take a step back, and it's like, who are the people that we're talking to help inform certain decisions? Just speaking to early adopters is not going to get us to the mass majority. And it definitely is not going to get us to the cultural nuances that are necessary to create experiences that are for people that look like you and I. We have to be clear, like, there are nuances. There's going to be things that I might gravitate towards as a Black woman, or as, even a person that is more tech forward, but maybe not as comfortable with certain early adopter things. You have to talk to everybody. So the early adopters, from my perspective, like, yeah, it's cool to be first. There's this other group of people that we need to get right as well. And then also, I think that there's time and investment that needs to be done in myth busting. Like, as a community, like, we're comfortable, we're safe because we do a lot of word of mouth, or there's things that we trust versus not. When you think about an electric vehicle, many people think like, oh, if there's charging stations everywhere, then people will be fine. Well, is that the case? Is the charging structure going to allow for people that live in more urban environments to be, as feeling as safe and, all of those things? Or what types of things are we doing to make sure that we identify all those pain points and we start to think through, like, okay, what is this true customer journey going to be? Like, our culture typically, like, we are what comes next. And so I think it's wildly important, for us to get that right. And then the last thing is just like, lean into it. Like, don't be apologetic about, here's this voice and here's what I need to solve for. And so a lot of the things that I think about, even in my role now, is like, how can I be transformational and disruptive in this space, but then talk to people based on their ideas and their characteristics, not about what they have now. And if they're an early adopter, or if they are part of the space of people that are in EV at this moment, because there's going to be a mass transition.
I totally agree with what you said in that sense. And also, what I heard or take away from your statement was that message and messenger are both critically important.
Absolutely.
In promoting and accelerating EV adoption. And actually, one of the ways that we work in that space is that we have a sister organization, which is our membership organization, EV Hybrid Noir, which is a national nonprofit that's the nation's largest network of diverse EV drivers and enthusiasts. So we have thousands of members and chapters around the country as well as abroad. And so part of the work that we're doing is trying to accelerate equitable e-mobility solutions and technology, but in a way that is culturally relevant and appropriate. And the big piece of it is just normalizing electrification and clean transportation, and having the opportunity to speak with people who are in your neighborhood, who have shared experiences and values. So it's similar like getting a referral to a restaurant. Absolutely. Or, you're new in town and you're going to lean into a good neighbor or a close friend or relative for that recommendation for a restaurant. And you're not going to try it or, give it the green light unless somebody can vouch for it. It's similar, I think, in our community, is that we need to have that family member, that trusted confidant that we can go to, and that will tell us, hey, you should really try this. This might work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then part of it is the experience. Is like, I know the first time I drove an electric vehicle, and it was just like for a test drive, I didn't want to give it back. And I was like, no, you can't just give this to me and then now I have to I have to give it back. Right. And so I think part of it is, like, what is that attraction? Like, how do you get, more consumers in these vehicles just so they can see and feel and experience, what it really is like to drive a battery electric vehicle. And I think that's going to also create a faster transition when people really see like, oh, this is actually pretty easy. And oh, it's actually an extension of some of the technology I'm using. And, when you think about cost of ownership or how you are even giving back to the earth and all the things that we're saving from an emission standpoint, I just think, we just need to have more of those touch points and not believe that a TV campaign or a social thing is enough.
Right. And I think, like you were saying, you have to demystify what it means to be an EV driver, have an EV, go from an ICE vehicle to clean transportation, and just what the triple bottom line means. So you have the financial benefits, you obviously have the public health benefits, and then of course you have the workforce and economic development opportunities that of course you can speak to in terms of your whole career trajectory and career path.
Yeah.
And so for a moment, I'd like to kind of take a little deeper dive into talking about the role of women in e-mobility and how we can accelerate growth of women in this segment. And so what we know is that women make about 1 in 4 of the automotive industry workers. That's a tongue twister. And so a recent report by Deloitte found that explored gender in the industry found that the majority of women who were surveyed, wish they had never started a career in the industry, which is really extremely unfortunate. And it's tough to hear this, but since this is one of the most exciting career paths for emerging women in the 21st century, I think both of you and I are really excited that we're working in this space. There's a question in the survey that asks, have you seen positive changes in the industry and attitudes towards female professionals in the last 5 years? And over a third of women that were asked this question said it actually got worse for them during the last 5 years, compared to 64% of men who said it's gotten better. What do you think is driving this disparity in the survey results? What counsel might you have for addressing maybe some of the challenges that women are facing in the workplace?
Gosh, that's a tough one. And I did take a look at the survey and I saw the top 3 things that caused them to answer that way was balance, diversity, and I think it was lack of promotional opportunities. And so when I think about a shift like that, and you think about like trending and what's happened over the last even 2 years, you think about many women that are, became the number one caregiver during COVID. You have a lot of the political and racial tensions that have happened, which unfortunately many times it spills over into the workplace. So I can't answer necessarily the why they feel that way. But to me, the challenge of, sort of dealing with that situation or knowing if that exists and things that I've personally done, sometimes you have to take a step back and audit yourself, so what's going on in the room and are you really paying attention to promotional opportunities, for moves, for being supportive, for getting coaching for individuals? That's one thing. The second piece I'm always, and then what I would advise is as a leader, setting clear expectations and intentions for what you expect. And so now, like if I have an open job opportunity, I am looking at all of the candidates that are being, considered for a role. I'm looking at, women, I'm looking at people of color. I'm asking the questions, especially if we're lacking diversity, how did we get here? And what am I going to do to be a part of the change that we're all looking to see? Some of it is going to be tough conversations. One thing that always raises my eyebrows is if someone says, oh, I have a preferred candidate. Okay, well, tell me more. Why is this person preferred? Why is there no one else in the organization that has a chance? And oh, by the way, if you aren't already doing the job, you aren't preferred. So you might have someone that you believe will do well, but it has to be an even playing field. And from my perspective, those are things that are like just super non-negotiable. Also in how I participate in recruiting. So it's not just about like, oh, I get to build out this organization. I need to be the leader of, X, Y, and Z. It's, hey, am I spending the time going back to Fuqua? Am I spending time, making sure that I'm helping to cultivate the talent that we bring in? So I still recruit for National Black MBA. making sure that we have that diversity and those people that can start to come up the system. And so there's a lot of things that as leaders you can do, but the biggest thing is, what's your intention? How are you communicating what your expectations are? And then also being a part of the change you wish to see.
I like those three statements. So what's your intention? How are you communicating the change that you want to see? And what was the third one?
Being a part of the change you wish to see. So I can't just write down, here's what I expect, and I'm not doing it myself. So that goes into recruiting or
Mm-hmm.
rolling my sleeves up. Let me see who you actually are interviewing, even if it's an entry level type of role or entry manager type of role. And so just being a part of it and being present.
I think those are all wonderful tips and strategies that can really help, um, you know, open the door and level the playing field so that more diverse women are able to participate in this sector.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm going to come back to you again.
Yeah.
So, obviously, so obviously, you have been a pioneer at Ford. You've had stories, opportunities, and experience there coming on board during your high school years. And so you've covered a lot of different bases, lots of professional development opportunities. So if a young woman of color found herself working at Ford, their post-college graduation, much like you once were, what advice would you give this young person about working in the automobile industry as well as specifically within the e-mobility sector?
Yeah. So I think from my perspective, advice that I would give up front is work with intention. I'm very big into intentionality and what goals is it that you want to really try to achieve and be clear about it. And it doesn't mean like, hey, I need to write down all the steps to become the next CEO, but have an idea of, and I'll take it back just like from a family standpoint. My mom always told me like you have God-given talents and you have ambition. And if you're able to put those together, then that's when you'll succeed. So it's not about who's telling you or who's providing what opportunity, but when you know what you're good at and you're strong in that and you're unapologetic about it, that's okay. Have some humility with it. But then also you have to have the ambition. So like talent and opportunities aren't just necessarily going to fall from the sky, but like be honest with yourself. You're the only person you can't lie to. So that's what I mean by that. And then, again, like there's a piece of, your job and whether it's in the EV space or in any company, like what's your brand going to be? What are you known for? So I'll tell you this, like at Ford, what people know me for is being like a transformational leader. I love being in white space and I'm also pretty disruptive in a positive way. So and that's the reason why I was chosen for this job. And it wasn't because I was like a Bev expert. That wasn't it. It was, okay, here's how we know she's going to move the needle. She can learn the rest of that. I always deliver and I show up on time. I make sure that anything I do and I touch is done with integrity. And so those are things that when I say like developing your brand, like understand what you want to be known for. So if you have an advocate or someone speaking on your behalf, it'll be very clear and easy for them to advocate for you. And then another piece for me is like understanding how to get active advocacy. And so I use that word active again with intention because you can have someone that has your back and they will speak up, but who's going to be speaking up all the time, whether they're prompted or not? So they are proactively helping you define your career. And then when it comes specifically to being like in the BEV or e-mobility space, be a student of the business. Like don't just worry about what the early adopters are doing or what's happening, right now. Think about how you can shift business into, again, going into that majority, that masses. How can you be transformational in ICE to BEV? How can you help with, creating journeys, whether it's with technology, whether it's with experience, whether it's, with even something you're developing yourself. How can you be defining in this space and you stand out? And that can go for anything, but I know in EV, it's like now that's the coin and key thing, and that's what everybody wants to be a part of. How do you rise above that? And if you have your foundation in order, your brand, how you show up, what you're able to deliver, and you're a student and you're listening and you're paying attention, someone will snatch you up in a heartbeat. I would.
And you just might. So let me do a quick recap now. So because I gotta reiterate these nuggets that you just shared. So you've got to think about what your brand going to be disruptive in a positive way, always deliver on time and show up with integrity, active advocacy, engage in active advocacy, be a student of the business and determine or figure out how can you shift the business. Also, last, how can you be transformational in your role? So those are the key Raj Register tips to success in the e-mobility sector.
That's it.
Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, that's so.
Shelley, if you find them, send them my way.
Okay, I want to keep them for myself because we can always definitely use young professionals with that type of attitude and positive, positive outlook in their life and in their career trajectory.
Absolutely.
So definitely, those are definitely wonderful and insightful recommendations, Raj.
My pleasure.
Well, you're very inspiring. You've totally blazed the path for other women of color to break the barriers in the electric transportation space. And we appreciate you taking time today to talk with us for a few minutes just about, your experiences, some of the emerging trends, and really how to break into the field and create a space where diverse women can really thrive and accelerate.
Well, I am humbled to be here. I do think it's an honor, and to have this space that you've created, again, with such intention, and it feels very authentic and genuine to be here talking to you. And I hope that we're able to stay in touch, because I think that there's a lot that we could learn from each other, because it's not going away. It's getting bigger, faster, stronger. And I think the more of us that are able to continue to work together and challenge each other, the stronger we'll be.
Absolutely. Like, we're definitely committed to, creating a space where we can expose young professionals from all communities, but particularly those who are underrepresented in STEM. So whether we're talking about engaging with young people in K through 12 programs or facilitating our HBCU program around e-mobility and careers in the space, we are totally committed to really making sure that the next generation or the next group of young professionals who are working in the space are here to stay, and they're not just coming for a moment and then and leaving because there wasn't support, there wasn't a community for them to lean into and really begin to flourish career-wise.
Yeah, that's real. I think, and one thing I talked about, recruiting, mentoring is also super important. And I try to spend as much time as I can internally and externally doing that. I just think we don't have enough people resource-wise that are ready and willing. And, even LinkedIn, that's another avenue. I get these notes and I'm like, yeah, let's set up a conversation. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, I'm not like Jesus Christ. So let's have a conversation. And so I just think this is amazing. And I wish you all the best in all of your endeavors. Again, like I said, this is just a really major moment. And I love seeing you shine.
So likewise, I love seeing you shine too. And definitely we're going to keep in touch. We'll keep talking. We'll probably have you back on the show again in the future and maybe bring another, maybe we'll have a dialogue with you as a seasoned senior executive, and then somebody who's new in the pipeline for have a three-way conversation that will probably really be insightful and really interesting.
With the ideas. I love it.
Well, I'm just vibing off of the information and the guidance that you're giving me. And then I do have to say this. So when you're at Fuqua recruiting, I hope you go down the street over to Chapel Hill to recruit at KF as well.
All right. I hear the challenge.
So no, we definitely appreciate you and everything that you're doing in this space. And we thank you again for continuing to just blaze that trail in the e-mobility sector for diverse women and for all women interested in working in the space.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, folks, that's all we have for you this week on this episode of On the Move Women in E-Mobility. I want to thank you, Raj, for talking with us today about your experiences and expertise. And if you'd like to hear more about this type of work, whether it's emerging trends in e-mobility or existing priorities, please join us for the E-Mobility Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Conference on November 17th and 18th. We'll be able to take a deeper dive into more aspects around e-mobility, particularly around diversity, equity, and inclusion as it relates to e-mobility and best practices. So on behalf of EV Noir, this is Dr. Shelley Francis. We'll see you the next time and have a great evening. Thank you very much.